For more on China's role on the world stage, I'm joined in our Washington studio by Jonathan Broder. He's a Washington-based senior writer for Newsweek, covering defense and foreign policy. Jonathan, welcome to our program.
Thank you.
I want to begin by talking about DPRK and really China's role in diffusing the tensions during the past year. I mean, we've come a long way since the last UN General Assembly when President Trump gave his famous speech. How instrumental has China been in getting DPRK to be, to make certain commitments and then to follow through on those commitments of denuclearization?
I think that China has reestablished a stronger relationship with the DPRK since this process began. You'll notice that the relations weren't that good before the process began, but then Kim Jong-un went and visited China twice before he went and met with Trump with President Trump in Singapore in June. I think that the view of the Chinese, I believe, is that any sort of concession that the North Koreans can extract from the United States helps China. So, for example, if, for example, the North Koreans were to close down the Yongbyon reactor or to destroy a missile testing site, and in return, the United States were to, let's just say, for argument's sake, withdraw some troops, a limited number of troops, or end or suspend
the military drills.
Military drills, that would be to China's advantage. So the North Koreans and the Chinese are really working together here to try to reduce tensions on the Korean Peninsula.
But we wouldn't be where we are today if it wasn't for China's role as well.
It's very, very comforting for Kim Jong-un to know that China has his back.
Okay, let's move on to Iran. China and world powers really trying here to salvage the Iranian nuclear deal after the United States unilaterally pulled out. There was a big meeting at the UN last night. They agreed to create a new payment mechanism to allow countries to make transactions with Iran while avoiding U.S. sanctions. Is it possible that this deal will survive under these types of side deals and mechanisms without the United States, and these countries are not going to be punished by U.S. sanctions, I should say?
Well, that remains to be seen. The United States is still threatening, of course, to sanction any country that buys oil from Iran. And who are the biggest buyers? It's China and India. And
China has said it's not going to slow down its imports.
It's not going to slow down, and is not as vulnerable as India is. Now, in the past, India got a waiver by reducing its purchase of Iranian oil by 50%. I've heard that this is what they're trying to do this time. But India actually has more leverage this time than it had before, because the Indians are building a port in Iran, in Bandar, which is on the Arabian Sea, so that there can be a sea-land route up to Afghanistan. If the Pakistanis were to close off the current route, that would be the only route for the Americans to supply their troops. Now, the Chinese, I think, are taking a leading role in this effort to keep the agreement alive, because it enhances China's position in the world as a global leader.
Well, it's not just China that wants to keep this deal alive.
No,
I mean,
right.
world powers,
Exactly.
EU.
Right, but the EU doesn't buy that much oil from Iran. China does.
Let's talk about China's peacekeeping operations in terms of personnel, in terms of money. They have contributed a lot to the UN peacekeeping operation. Do you see that expanding to other parts of the world beyond Africa?
Yes, I do. And the reason is, you'll notice that China is raising its profile in the world in terms of its global leadership at a time when the United States is withdrawing. The United States is cutting back its funding for the United Nations.
A host of multilateral agreements around the world.
Exactly. It's pulling out of the Paris Accords. China is very much a part of that accord. So the peacekeeping operations are very much a symbol of China's effort to fill the void that the United States is leaving.
We'll leave it there. Jonathan Broder, thank you so much.